We were headed to a fancy restaurant where we had been invited by my mother-in-law, Beth. When we got there, there was only one seat left. It seems like there is only one seat left, so there is no seat prepared for me? When I asked her that, she grinned and said this. This is only a family gathering, so there was no need for me to prepare a seat for you. Oh, but you'll have to pay the bill for the restaurant. Beth looked really proud of herself as she said this. But I just had enough, and couldn't take it anymore. I will never pay the bill for a stranger. My name is Megan, and I am a 30-year-old office worker. My husband, Andrew, and I have been married for 3 years now. We are currently both working together, and we have been supporting each other and living happily together. My husband does his share of the house chores, and he also works hard at his job. I respect him, and I think we have a very good relationship as husband and wife. We were happily married in that way, but there was still one problem which troubled me, and it was a big problem for me. And that problem was my mother-in-law, Beth. My husband has a little brother, Thomas, and Andrew was the eldest. So, that is one of the reasons why Beth loves my husband very much, as he was her eldest son. My husband tells me, "My mother is too overprotective and she could be a little bit of a hassle." And it seems that he's not a mama's boy, but that Beth is the one who is overly affectionate about Andrew. Probably Beth thinks that her eldest son is the most dependable, so of course she considers me, who married him, to be her enemy. And what's even more funny is that it takes about only 20 minutes by car from my parents-in-law's house to our house, so we live pretty close to each other. So that's why Beth persistently calls us to visit her nonstop. Andrew basically refuses Beth, saying that we were busy. But if he doesn't show up at least once a month, Beth would storm into our house, so he has no choice but to visit her. I wouldn't really mind if Beth only bothered my husband, but she also picks on me and harasses me, which is very annoying. "Oh, Megan, I made you some tea." Well, yours is the third cup which I brewed with the used tea leaves, but I'm sure that the tea would still taste fine. "Oh, thank you very much." It's sour. There seemed to be a lot of vinegar in the tea, so it tasted extremely sour and bad. Seeing me frowning and making faces since it was so sour, Beth was holding her stomach and laughing. I love that face of yours. It really is worth teasing you around. And that is how Beth would suddenly pick on me in an unexpected way. And not only that, but she usually says something very abusive towards me. And the unfair thing is that Beth would never do that in front of my husband. Only when it is just the two of us, she picks on me and is mean to me. And lately, Beth has been picking on me again by asking me questions whether we are blessed with her grandchild or not. "Oh, Megan, when are you going to get pregnant?" "Well, Andrew and I are both still working, so we're not really in a hurry about it. Besides, Andrew and I have been talking about not really planning, but waiting for an opportunity for me to get pregnant in a natural way." "Well, it seems like that natural timing hasn't come at all. You are infertile, aren't you?" "Excuse me?" "Of course, you must be infertile. I really do feel sorry for Andrew for marrying a wife like you." Beth would say those horrible, abusive words to me, as if it was a normal thing to do. Why should I be the one being told this by Beth? First of all, it's not right that she sees me as her enemy just because I married her eldest son. And It's also not right that she is directly attacking me verbally with these terrible abusive words. I was honestly overwhelmed by Beth being like this and attacking me like this. I thought about talking to Andrew about it, but he had just been promoted at his work at the time and was quite busy with work. So, because of that, I didn't want to cause him any unnecessary troubles. I should take care of this by myself. Since thinking that, I then tried various things. I tried praising Beth, and on the contrary, I also tried arguing back to her about her bullying me. But none of them worked at all, because they only made Beth even more annoying than before. Then, I had heard that Andrew's little brother Thomas was getting married. While I congratulated Thomas and his wife-to-be about their marriage, I felt a little bad for Thomas's partner, Kimberly. I'm completely sure that Kimberly would be in trouble if she finds out that her mother-in-law was such an insane, jealous old woman. Afterwards, Thomas got married successfully to Kimberly, who is now his wife, and had a huge wedding ceremony. Kimberly was very beautiful in her wedding dress, and she actually used to be a model. She had a great shape, and seeing her in her beautiful wedding dress, I thought that she was going to be photographed for a wedding magazine. Then came the first New Year's after Thomas and Kimberly got married. At my parents-in-law's house, relatives gather for a dinner party on New Year's Eve. I was sure that Kimberly would be ordered around by Beth to help out around the dinner party. If she looks like she's having a hard time, then I should be there to support her. That's what I thought to myself, but I was surprised to see what had happened on the New Year's Eve. "Oh, Kimberly! Let's have a drink over there." "All right, Beth." To my surprise, Beth didn't order around Kimberly to help prepare for the dinner party at all, and just treated her nicely. "Oh, Kimberly, you're a very nice and lovely girl, and I'm just so proud of you. She's so different from my eldest son's wife, who does everything wrong when I ask her to do something for me. Having Kimberly here is enough. I don't need any other wife other than her." That's what Beth would say to all our relatives. I was filled with anger and embarrassment. It seems that Beth thought that she could be the center of attention just by being with Kimberly, who was a model, and everyone would be around her. So that's why Beth seems to like Kimberly more. On the other hand, Beth would still pick on me whenever we are alone in the kitchen. "You really are an inconsiderate person, aren't you? If someone has an empty glass, go pour a glass of beer right away. Compared to Kimberly, you're not beautiful, and the only thing you're good at is doing your best at house chores. You're a woman who is infertile and who can't even get pregnant. So just hurry up and do the chores." Beth treated me like that, and in this way, I saw a huge gap between how I was being treated and how Kimberly was being treated by Beth. I think it's amazing that she can change her attitude so blatantly. I tried not to provoke Beth any further and returned to the dining hall after listening to her accordingly. While I was eating at a table away from Beth, some of the relatives who were sitting nearby encouraged me. Beth is a person who would take things for advantage. I mean, she changes her attitude so blatantly. "You really are having a hard time, huh? Now that Beth's in a good mood from the drinks, you should also enjoy the food and drinks while she's being like that." "Thank you. Since some of the relatives are kind to me in this way, I have managed to endure the crappy treatment from Beth. But then, something unbearable happened. One day, my husband received a phone call from Beth. "What? Dad's 60th birthday celebration?" Yes. We were planning to all get together as a family and celebrate his birthday. Of course you will come, right?" "Yeah, I will." "Could you also ask Megan for her to come to the celebration too?" "Sure.
I'll ask if she can make it or not.
Beth has a really loud voice, so I could normally hear her voice from my husband's phone and I could understand what she was saying.
Well, I think you heard all about it, but what do you think, Megan? Do you think you can go?
Well, I thought about it. I really did not want to see Beth as much as possible. But it would create bitter feelings if I was the only one not attending Jack's 60th birthday celebration. Thomas and Kimberly would definitely be invited, and they would go, so if I don't go, then I would only be the one not attending. Well, Beth wouldn't bully me when Andrew is there with me, so I guess I'd be fine. I told Andrew that I would attend, and then the two of us went shopping for a gift to celebrate Jack's 60th birthday. About 2 weeks later, the day of Jack's 60th birthday celebration arrived in no time. We were told that the party would start at 6:30 p.m., so my husband and I went to the dinner party on time. We headed for a fancy restaurant where we had been invited by Beth. When we arrived and were shown to the private room, all the other relatives were already there.
Oh, so everyone had already arrived. You're all early.
My husband said that, and to that, Thomas replied,
No, Mother told us that today's dinner party starts at 6 p.m. What? No, it's from 6:30, right?
My husband looks at me as he said that. To that, I said, Yes, Beth called me the day before yesterday about the start time and told me that it would be from 6:30 p.m. Then to this, Beth says, I clearly said it would start from 6 p.m., didn't I? Megan, you must have misunderstood. And she began to get angry. I don't want you to talk as if it was my fault when you're the one who got it wrong. As she said that, then it hit me that I was being set up. Beth was trying to make me the bad guy, to get everyone to blame me.
Oh, there. It's not like we're going to run out of food. And now that we're all here, let's get on with it.
Jack, who was the main host of the party, said so, and it was settled for the time being. My husband and I walked to the end of the dining hall where there was an empty seat. But then I noticed something. When I got there, there was only one seat left. It can't be. It was Beth who had organized this dinner party. There was no way that Beth would not have prepared a seat for Andrew. This means that she probably did not prepare a seat for me on purpose. She probably lied to us about the starting time because she wanted to make sure we would be the last to arrive. You didn't prepare a seat for me? When I asked her that, Beth said this with a huge grin on her face. Oh, did I perhaps make a mistake? Did I miss a seat for you? I'm sorry. I thought I had enough seats for everyone, but I must have made a mistake then, Beth lied in a way that was completely easy for me to understand that it was a lie. Then Andrew said,
I'll see if I can get another seat,
and left the room. I felt a little awkward being in this room just standing around, so I left and waited for my husband to come back. Then, for some reason, Beth also came out of the room. Beth seemed to think that this was a good chance to be alone and bully me. Your panicking face was a masterpiece. Aren't you ashamed at all for doing this? If Jack or Andrew finds out about you bullying me like this, they would be furious with you. Excuse me? Of course they won't find out. I'm bullying you in a way that they won't ever find out about it. I see. But I really didn't think that you wouldn't prepare a seat for me here today. Because a wife is only a stranger, and because we're not even related by blood, you know? This is a family gathering, so there's no need to prepare a seat for a person like you. Then what about Kimberly? She's a wife too. She is special. If she's there, then everyone would also pay attention to me. I see. Well, I've had enough. Even if I could get an extra seat, I'm leaving. Well, duh, of course. Who would even allow you to attend to this party? Oh, but you will have to pay for the restaurant bill. Beth looked so proud of herself as she said that. But I have had enough, and I couldn't take it anymore. I will not obey with what Beth says anymore. Oh, do stop talking nonsense, Beth. I will never pay for someone's bill who is a stranger to me. When I said that, Beth's face turned bright red. This is not nonsense, and also, what are you saying to your own mother-in-law? Oh, no, you said it yourself, Beth, that a wife like me is a stranger. Or do you pay for other people's meals and drinks, Beth? Well, you certainly don't look like such a saint who would even do that, though. Just shut up and pay up. How persistent are you? I'm leaving now. Oh, no. Are you really leaving? When I really tried to leave, Beth began to panic. What do you want? You're the one who kicked me out, you know. Well, it's my treat for today's celebration. That's why I'm supposed to pay for this dinner party. Oh, so you mean to tell me that you showed off with this fancy restaurant with the intention of making me pay for it? Yes, that's right. So you have no choice but to pay for it. Beth's logic completely made no sense to me. I felt ridiculous and said, I'm leaving, and headed for the exit. Beth was screaming at me, but I ignored her and left the restaurant. About 5 minutes later, I received a phone call from Andrew.
Megan, where did you go? Mom said that you left on your own.
I really can't stand it anymore.
Huh? What are you talking about?
You'll understand when you hear the recording I'm about to send you. I hung up the phone and sent my husband the conversation with Beth that I secretly recorded earlier. I had actually decided to handle the situation myself without consulting Andrew about it, so I made sure to start the recording app whenever I was alone with Beth. A little while after I sent the recording, Andrew sent me a message saying, "Leave it to me." Since Andrew said that, I left him to it, and I went on home. Half an hour later, Andrew called me to tell me that he had kicked Beth out of the party and that I should go over to the party. So, I did as I was told and went back to the restaurant. And when I entered the private room, Andrew, Jack, and Thomas came over and apologized to me.
Oh, Megan, I am so sorry that I didn't realize that my stupid wife was doing something terrible to you. I'm really sorry about that, Megan. I should have watched Mom more carefully, too. Megan, I am so sorry for all the pain I have caused you. I should have been the one to protect you the most.
I felt a little better when they all apologized to me that way. According to Andrew, he played the recording in front of everyone and began to question Beth right then and there. Since she couldn't deny it as the evidence was there, it seems that Jack became very angry at her and told Beth that he was divorcing her and kicked her out. Beth actually asked for Kimberly's help, but Kimberly cut her off saying, "I don't trust you since I now know the real reason why you were so nice to me." And no one took Beth's side, and Beth screamed, "Why do you believe what that woman says?" And to that, Jack responded,
"That's enough. I can't do this anymore with you. I'm divorcing you,"
and kicked her out of the restaurant. With Beth gone, there was room for one more person, and I was able to attend the dinner party, and we celebrated Jack's 60th birthday in peace. Jack was very pleased with the gift my husband and I picked out for him, and we had a great time. We paid half of the bill, and the other half was paid by Thomas and Kimberly. After that, Jack really had divorced Beth. Beth asked Andrew and Thomas for help, but both of them were so disappointed with their own mother that they ignored her. Beth, who had been a housewife all her life, now lives alone in a rundown apartment while working part-time for minimum wage. Seeing Beth living her life like that, even though I knew this already, I thought to myself that I will never bully a wife ever. If I ever have children and they have a wife in the future, I will make sure that I will never be like Beth. For now, I will enjoy our peaceful married life as much as I can. It is unbelievable of Beth to try to get her own daughter-in-law to pay for the restaurant without preparing a seat for her. I was just really appalled at Beth's bullying and how she treated Megan. After all, that's the reason Jack divorced Beth. So, I do believe that Beth deserves what she got. I wish Megan a happy life with her wonderful husband. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My mother-in-law hates me, and once I visited her, she forced me to shop for groceries, so I went home.
Hey, you can't come in here yet. Excuse me? You need to go buy these first. Saying that, my mother-in-law Laura handed me a piece of paper which had a list on it. Is she asking me to actually get all the things in this list? You better hurry up, okay? My name is Alice, and I am a 32-year-old housewife. I got recently married to my husband, Tim. I met him at a blind date, but he approached me aggressively, and we started dating, and then we got married. I was surprised at the fact that we got married within 6 months of dating. But, considering our ages, I thought it was better to make the decision to marry him quickly. One of the reasons people were really surprised at my decision to get married so soon to Tim was because of the man I had dated before my husband. My ex, Kurt, and I had been dating since our freshman year of college, and had been together for about 12 years. We lived together for a long time, and people around us were always teasing both of us about when we would get married. I assumed that I would probably end up marrying Kurt too. But, out of the blue, Kurt had suddenly dumped me.
I know this is very selfish of me, but I want you to break up with me.
What? Why are you saying this so suddenly?
I'm sorry, but I can't imagine a future with you anymore, Alice.
Are you being serious? How could you even say that after 12 years of dating, Kurt?
I'm so sorry, but we can't go out anymore.
No matter what I said to Kurt, he insisted that he wanted to break up without giving me any good reasons. And I was just so angry that in the end, I agreed to break up with him. The first few months after the breakup were really rough for me, as I felt like I had wasted my precious 20s because of him. I drank so much that my friends were worried about me, and to top it all off, as I was also drunk, I began to pick up any guys I could find, and seeing this, my friends rushed to stop me and forced me to take a taxi back home. Seeing me like that, my friend thought that if I continued like that, it would be a bad idea, so she set me up with a blind date, where I met my current husband, Tim. My husband is a man known to be elite, as he graduated from a prestigious university, and he was working for a major corporation. He is 2 years older than me, and his parents told him that it was time for him to bring someone home for him to get married to, so he was looking for his marriage partner. And he aggressively approached me, so I fell for him easily. Looking back now, I regret that I could have made a more logical decision instead of just deciding superficially, but my husband had a great family and personal background. It didn't look that bad, so I guess I had no choice but to be deceived by him. Besides, to someone who was dumped after going out for 12 years, a partner like him for a marriage was just perfect at that time for me. All of these reasons, and with that timing, this made me decide to marry my husband. When I married Tim, he asked me to fully focus on being a housewife. I liked my job that I was working at, but not so much that I wanted to continue it against my husband's will. So that's why I became a full-time housewife. From then on, I supported my husband by doing my best at all the house chores. So, I think our marriage was going well in its own way. But at the same time, there were times where I felt really bored of it too. Not working meant that I had so much time on my hands as a housewife. If I thought like that, then probably I'm more the type where I like to be busy working away. But since I got married and became a full-time housewife, I thought I should properly do my part for my husband. And so the days passed by in the blink of an eye, and a year had passed since we got married. Since then, nothing had changed so much, and we continued to go about our daily lives as usual. In my husband's family, he is the youngest as he has 2 elder sisters, Rachel and Julia, and his sisters are very friendly and nice to me, and they would often come over to our house to visit. But my husband would always make an unhappy face when Rachel and Julia comes over to visit us. Rachel and Julia were kind, but they were also very caring and reliable, and whenever my husband did something, they would get very angry at him. So, maybe because of that, my husband gets a little nervous when Rachel and Julia were around. But I had never seen Rachel or Julia getting angry at Tim like that, so when he told me about that part, I didn't take him that serious about it. Then, as another year was about to end, I received a phone call from my mother-in-law, Laura, all of a sudden. "Hello, Laura. You called me all of a sudden. So did something happen? You and Tim should come visit me this New Year's." "Pardon me? You didn't come last year, right? So that's why you should come this year. I'll show you how to spend the New Year's in our house." Saying just that, Laura hung up the phone.
Who was it from?
"It was from your mother. She wants us to visit her for the New Year's."
Well, it's true. We didn't get to go last year. It's been a while since we went, so I guess we should go then.
I thought that I was going to spend a relaxing time at home for this New Year's. I thought that I would be drinking beer, watching the TV, and taking it easy during the New Year's holidays. I had no idea that I would be going to Laura's house. And to have her contact us on Christmas Eve, with only a week or so to go until the New Year's. Originally, we had not visited my parents-in-law that much. And that's because my husband didn't want to visit them frequently. Last year, I did ask him if we didn't have to go during Christmas and New Year's or not, but he refused, saying things like,
"It's okay, my family doesn't really expect a lot out from us."
Well, I think it was probably because he would have more chances to see his sisters if we visited at that time. So, that's why we would visit them every month or so on a day when there was nothing going on. I was a little depressed about visiting my in-laws for the New Year's. It's because I had a feeling that Laura did not like me very much. When I visited Laura's house, she always talked only to Tim and treated me as if I was not there. My father-in-law, Jim, would talk to me so that I wouldn't feel unwanted, but it was not uncommon for Laura to not even look at me once. When I talked to my husband about it before, he just said,
"It's probably just your imagination. You're too self-conscious."
And the conversation ended. So I can't really rely on my husband regarding Laura. So what should I do this coming New Year's? But since Jim will be there and Rachel and Julia will probably be there, so I guess I won't have to feel too horrible. So I decided not to worry too much about it. And the New Year's Eve came in no time. My husband and I finished cleaning our own house in the morning, had lunch, and drove to Jim and Laura's house. My in-laws' house is 2 hours away from ours, so we arrived there around 2 p.m. When I got out of the car, I noticed that Jim's car was not there. Worried about his absence, I asked my husband where he had gone, and he told me that Jim was probably picking up Rachel and Julia. I was relieved to hear that, and my husband and I went to the front door and pressed the doorbell. "Yes, I'll open the door soon," Laura called out, and a few minutes later, the front door opened. "Oh, hello! Thank you for coming here all the way. Welcome back. Laura, it's so nice to see you. Laura glanced at me, smiled only at Tim, and said, Come on in. There's cake and tea. Let's eat. She did it again. This is how she would ignore me. Feeling a little uncomfortable, I tried to go inside the house. But then, Laura stood in front of me. Hey, you can't come in here yet. Excuse me? You need to go buy these first. Saying that, my mother-in-law Laura handed me a piece of paper which had a list on it. There were many ingredients listed on the paper, including beef, lettuce, tomatoes, mushrooms, beer, and so on. Is she asking me to actually get all the things in this list? You better hurry up, okay? Oh, where is the supermarket around here? When I asked her that, Laura looked annoyed. It's your fault that you rarely show up here, isn't it? If you came here often, you would know where the supermarket is, wouldn't you? Check where the supermarkets are by yourself. Okay. Then what about the food expenses? Shall I just pay for it and ask you to pay back after? When I said that, Laura's eyes widened and she became angry. You rarely come visit my house, but you want me to pay for it? I can't believe you. Laura began to shout, so Tim came over to see what was going on.
What's wrong, Mom?
Oh, Tim, honey, Alice just tried to make me pay for the groceries.
What? Hey, don't annoy Mom like that. You should just pay for that stuff instead.
What? But then I'll pay it out from our family budget. Is that okay with you?
Huh? Pay it from your credit card. Don't pay it from our family budget.
No way. Just hurry up and go. We're about to have our tea time, so don't ruin it. Saying that, Laura slammed the front door on me loudly. How unbelievable. I was so angry at Laura's attitude, as well as the mama's boy husband and his action. I was so mad that I crumpled up the list, threw it right in front of the front door, and got in the car to go home. On the way home, I stopped at a supermarket and bought some amazing appetizers, steak, and beer. I arrived home at 5 p.m., so I took a bath to relax and drank the cold, delicious beer while eating the appetizers by myself from about 6 p.m. I was enjoying my own time and I was watching TV while getting a little bit tipsy. Suddenly, I looked over at my phone, which I had put on silent, to see if my husband had called. But there was no phone call or even a text message from my husband, even though I had come home without shopping. For some reason, that made me angry too. I was getting irritated, so I decided to distract myself by eating the delicious steak. As I was eating my steak, the doorbell rang all of a sudden. And as I was thinking who could it be at this hour and opened the door, I saw my in-laws and Tim standing there. To my surprise, Rachel began to apologize by saying, "I'm sorry for my stupid mother and brother." Both Laura and Tim's eyes were bright red. This was not because they were drunk or anything, but because they were yelled at by Rachel, Julia, and Jim, and they were probably crying. Being forced by Rachel and Julia, Tim and Laura began to apologize. Well, they sounded like they had to apologize because they were forced to. After, I took Tim into the house and the in-laws left. As soon as my husband saw that his sisters and his father were gone, he immediately became angry, saying,
"Why didn't you cover for me?"
He continued to complain about it, but I just ignored him. And a few days later, I met my high school friends for the first time in a while and had lunch with them. But on the way home, I saw my husband having an affair with another woman. He was walking arm in arm with a young woman. I quickly took a photo of the two of them from the shadows and sent it to my husband over text message asking him what this was all about. Then he read the message, but he didn't reply back and ignored the text message. As I waited for my husband to return home, angry at him for not replying back to me, he brought back his lover and Laura with him. Laura and his lover came in without my permission. Then Laura began to say, This woman is much more suitable for my son than you, so you should leave my son. She even said, because you were unworthy, my son ended up having an affair, so there will be no alimony. Tim also took advantage of the situation and said, "It's your fault. It's not my fault, okay?" His lover was grinning with a victorious look on her face. Then, my husband brought out the signed divorce papers. I pretended to be upset and said, "Hey, give me some time to think about it," and walked out. My husband thought that I was panicking, so he grinned and said,
"Come back soon, we'll be waiting for you."
I went into a cafe and immediately called Rachel and Julia about it. They both came right away, and I played them what Tim and Laura had said to me, which I had recorded secretly. Both Rachel and Julia was so angry and said to me, "Please send that recording to our father as well." And after sending it, the three of us then went back to the house where Tim, Laura, and Tim's lover was. My husband and Laura were so surprised that Rachel and Julia had also arrived that they fell off their chairs. "You! That's enough!" "Yeah, we're always angry at you, but how can we get you to understand that what you're doing is wrong here?" Both Rachel and Julia got mad at Tim first. And soon after, Rachel and Julia also got mad at Laura. "This is what happens when you spoil him, Mom. I mean, what is wrong with you? What kind of nerve do you have to approve your own son's affair?" Both Tim and Laura were frightened and tried to blame on Tim's lover. Then, both Rachel and Laura put their faces close to Tim's lover and glared at her. Tim's lover got so scared of them that she became teary-eyed and trembled, saying, I'm sorry. Rachel and Julia then made her husband promise by saying, "You will get a divorce, Tim, but you must pay the alimony to Alice." Well, there was no way not to pay for alimony when Tim even admitted that he was having an affair by himself. Then, as I was signing the divorce papers, Laura's phone rang. Apparently, she received a text message from Jim. "Oh my God, what shall I do? Jim is saying that he is going to divorce me." Laura was panicking and clung desperately to my husband with tears in her eyes. But Tim had to pay alimony to me because of Rachel and Julia, so he couldn't afford to worry about his own mother right now.
Well, don't ask me about it. I don't even have the capacity to look after you.
That was what he was saying to Laura. After that, we successfully got divorced. By the way, Tim's lover disappeared from Tim after paying alimony because she was too scared of Rachel and Julia. And it seems that Jim really divorced Laura too, and now she had forced herself into Tim's place so that she could live with him. They are now living together, and Tim is the one paying off the alimony and cover living expenses for both Laura and him. But the affair was discovered by someone at work somehow, and word spread through Tim's company, and he was given a pay cut, so apparently he is living poorly. It's what both Tim and Laura deserves. Meanwhile, Rachel had asked me if I wanted to join her company because someone quit at her place, so I went in for a job interview. They hired me as a full-time employee, and I am now working hard with Rachel. And both Rachel and Julia took me to a bar after work to celebrate for getting a new job and divorcing Tim. You know, this is our go-to place. They've had a new bartender for a couple of years now, and he's nice and handsome. Wow, really? Is he a young man? No, I think he's about your age, Alice. He's in his early 30s, I think. While having this conversation with them, we arrived at the bar. I followed Rachel and Julia and sat at the counter. Welcome! The bartender said that, so I looked at who he was. Kurt!
Alice!
To my surprise, there he was, my ex-boyfriend who dumped me after 12 years of dating. So I said, "Excuse me, I should head home," to Rachel and Julia, and I was about to leave. Then Kurt said,
"Wait!"
and stopped me.
"Can you give me a minute? There's something I need to tell you."
Okay. With that, we went outside to talk.
"I'm really sorry about what happened with us."
It's okay now. I was pretty shocked that you suddenly dumped me, but it's all in the past now. I mean, you're a bartender now, right? Did you quit your job?
No, I'm still working at the company.
Oh, so you're doing this as a side job? Why are you doing that?
I was just trying to explain about that. Actually, my father got very sick 2 years ago and he can no longer work at his factory.
What?
Without him, the factory wouldn't run well, and the medical expenses for his illness were pretty expensive, and at that time, the situation was really bad back at home. As a result, we had no choice but to close my father's factory. We were left with a debt of several $1,000s. Plus, my father's medical expenses were still expensive. So I couldn't really ask you to marry me being in that situation. Because it would be so embarrassing for you to have a husband covered in debt as soon as we get married, right? I didn't want to make you unhappy, so that's why I just dumped you back then, Alice. But I'm really sorry for making you feel horrible. I thought that I would never see you again, so now that we've miraculously met again, I felt I had no choice but to tell you.
You idiot.
Huh?
Then you should have talked to me first about it. You just left me without giving me any reasons. So do you know how hard it was for me to accept that?
I'm sorry.
Well, it can't be helped now, but are you still in debt?
I'll finally finish paying it off this month. It's a huge relief, you know. And my father's discharged from the hospital for now.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that.
You know, Alice, I won't say that I want to start over with you right now, so will you just be my friend again?
Yeah, sure. We walked back into the bar together, and then seeing that, Rachel and Julia both cheered for me happily. In the end, Rachel, Julia, and I made Kurt buy us a round of drinks, saying that it was his fault that I married to Tim, which ended up in divorce as a joke. After that, I started seeing Kurt regularly, and as time went on, we gradually grew closer and started dating again. Then, Kurt proposed to me and we finally got married. All my friends and family around me congratulated me. Even Rachel and Julia told me that I was 100 times more suitable with Kurt than Tim. After that, we had a baby, and Kurt, our son Theo, and I have been living together happily. I would like to continue to make happy memories with my husband and son, whom I love very much. Both Rachel and Julia are very cool. I would love to meet sisters like them. I'm glad Alice was able to cut off from Tim and Laura. And the fateful reunion with Kurt was also very touching. Please continue to live happily with the family, Alice. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My meal intentionally served my disliked food all the time, so I put on a show revealing her true nature.
My name is Sally, turning 30 this year. I work in a marketing company. My husband Keith is also my colleague. We got chose during the training program and got married 2 years ago. We like to do things at our own pace, so we respect each other's privacy and keep a good distance between us. We share the chores and finances completely. Keith has been living alone since he started working. I'm grateful that he can do more housework than I, who lived at home. There was nothing to complain about him, and we had a harmonious marriage. Except for one thing. Keith, Sally, welcome. Make yourself home. Thank you, Lisa. One weekend, we visited Keith's parents, who lived about 1 hour's drive. His mother, Lisa, always welcomed us cheerfully with a lot of home cooking. The menu that day, including shiitake mushrooms stuffed with meat, boiled king trumpet mushrooms with cheese, salted oyster mushrooms, and so on. Amazingly old mushrooms today. I got some delicious ones at the farmer's market, so I was excited. Lisa said happily to bewildered Keith, and I forced a smile. I had told her that I didn't like mushrooms. In other words, these dishes were her harassment toward me. It started on the first visit after our marriage. Liz had asked me over the phone if I had anything I couldn't or didn't like to eat. Without any doubt, I answered that I didn't like scallops. I had no idea that she, who never ceased to smile and seemed to be good-natured, was planning to bully me. But she surprised me with scallop gratin and salted scallops. She even prepared scallop pasta for lunch the next day. He knew I disliked it and mentioned it to her. "Mom, Sally doesn't like scallops." "Oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't know that." She played dumb. I was annoyed, but decided that she must have forgotten, and I let it go. Right before the next visit, she called and asked me again if there was any food I don't like. I answered, childishly, that I did not like the bitter taste of green bell peppers and Brussels sprouts. Well, I was served a lot of blows during my stay. Then it hit me that she was intentionally doing it. She didn't like me. It hurt more than it angered me. Keith sensed it too when she served things I disliked with pinpoint accuracy twice in a row. He didn't say anything at that time, but he apologized to me in the car on the way home. He looked twice as small and said, "Did I do something to make her hate me?" "No, you didn't do anything wrong." "I'm not sure. I've been taking her word and haven't been helping her with the cooking at all. Maybe I should offer to cook." "No, I don't think so." "Me either." He was very clear about this, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. That was because I wasn't so good at cooking. Keith even declared that he was going to be in charge of it at home. There was another problem. Lisa's cooking was amazing. The first time she served me scallop gratin, I thought it would be rude not to take a bite. I gathered up my courage and put it in my mouth. To my surprise, it was delicious. It tasted nothing as I'd ever had before. I disliked the smell of the sea, but there was no trace of it. And the texture and aroma of the scallops and the smoothness of the cream with the melted cheese were a perfect match. The green bell peppers and Brussels sprouts were also exquisite, and the mild bitterness beautifully accentuated the dish. I complimented the food and gobbled them down. Lisa's dumbfounded expression left such an impression on me. It was also the reason Keith couldn't get mad at her because I ate everything she served. I enjoyed the food that was supposed to be unsavory to me. It was my third visit. I devoured the mushroom dishes with gusto. Thanks to Lisa's harassment, my dislikes were decreasing. Since I was introduced to her cooking, I realized that the reason I'd been picky was that I grew up in a family that didn't care much about the food. Oh, I had no idea mushrooms could taste that good. I've been missing out on so much in my life. I rubbed my stomach in satisfaction next to Keith, who slapped his forehead. What would be Mom's true intention if you enjoyed harassment? She's a good cook, so maybe she has some pride? I don't get it. Frankly, I'm more concerned about your dad and brother's attitude than your mother's harassment. I guess you're right. Lisa lived with her husband David, who retired a few years ago, and another son Kyle, who was single. Her direct harassment was the least of my worries, but I was more annoyed with Kyle, who watched me with a smirk. Perhaps he knew that she was entertaining me with something I disliked. When I ate the food with relish, she looked puzzled, but he showed obvious dissatisfaction. He even watched my every move with unpleasant attention, and if I made the slightest mistake, he would make sexist remarks. On the other hand, David thought I was a servant, a housekeeper, or something, and ordered me around with a snap of his fingers. Keith shielded me, but I still felt degraded. You know, we shouldn't visit them anymore. I was taking advantage of your generosity, but there's something wrong with my family. he murmured after the visit. I guess you're right. No matter how good the food was, it didn't change the fact that Lisa was harassing me. I was also fed up with the male chauvinism of David and Kyle. However, if I just pretended that it had never happened, I would be left annoyed. I had an idea of how to get back to them. Okay, can we have the vinyl visit on New Year's Day? Here's something I would love to do to them. When I shared my idea with him, he seemed a little reluctant, but he agreed to go along with it. Lisa disliked me for some reason, and only put things on the table I didn't like. Maybe it was going to be the last time we saw each other. I hoped she would take my paycheck to her heart. Then came the final visit, probably the last New Year's Day to be celebrated at my in-laws' house. On the dining table, there was a sumptuous dinner made by Lisa with a plate of A4 grade Wagyu steaks. It was a divine sight that I had never seen at my parents' house. Normally, I would be very excited, but Keith and I were anxious. I had told Lisa in advance that I wasn't a big fan of high-grade beef and preferred pork loin. She was soothing my reaction with a smile on her face, and Kyle was smirking as usual. David was indifferent and demanded wine from Lisa. These were the usual behaviors of in-laws. It was a very awkward scene. I ate the salad first quietly, then I started on the steak. Then carefully prepared ingredients and tender meat were just heavenly. Your cooking's just perfect, Lisa. A compliment came from the bottom of my heart. Oh, thank you. Lisa had a confused look on her face. Almost speaking over her, Kyle opened his mouth with a nasty smile. By the way, why are we having such an extravagant dinner? Is there something special to celebrate with expensive beef? Well, Lisa mumbled. Ugh, what a rotten character he was. Today is a very special day, right, Lisa? Huh? I put a box I had secretly brought in front of her. I opened it and showed her what was inside. It was a whole cake. Keith and I put party poppers we had hidden. Happy birthday, Lisa! Oh my god! The dry sound of explosions was followed by confetti and gunpowder. Lisa's eyes were so big in confusion, and David and Kyle were stunned. With a big smile on my face, I explained to them. Your birthday is January 1st, isn't it? Keith told me. You like steak, but David and Kyle usually get the most and only give you leftovers. Well, she gave Keith and me a stunned look. He looked back at her and said, You always entertain us on New Year's Day, and we never celebrated your birthday since I was a child. You never said anything about it either. I had totally forgotten about your birthday for so long. I'm sorry. Being married to Sally has made me realize a lot of things. Keith! She seemed to be tearing up at his heartfelt apology. In the midst of all this, Kyle clicked his tongue in his annoyance. What's this? You're scoring points, aren't you? That's what I don't like women. You're all calculating. He shook his head in disgust, and I glared at him with all my might. I'm glad to be a calculating woman. I'm much better than a 34-year-old and a 65-year-old man who do nothing and pester her all year round. What the? He was so stunned to be talked back to by me that he lost his words. His face was bright red with his mouth open. Even David, who was staring blankly at the whole cake, was furious at my rebellious attitude. Keith, shut your wife up. You haven't trained her well enough. She doesn't know her position in this house. Keith yelled back to him. You shut your mouth. You, who do you think you are? Ignoring her brow, I spoke to Lisa. How does it feel? to be congratulated by someone you were harassing. Excuse me? Her face quickly turned pale. As if I were telling a child, I spoke to her softly and without hesitation. Did you enjoy doing it? Well, listen, are you happy taking care of a son who thinks that celebrating his mother's birthday is nothing more than scoring points? Are you willing to spend the rest of your life taking care of these men? Don't you envy that I'm loved and treated well by Keith? She was at a loss for words. I didn't know how she felt while harassing me. However, even if she didn't say it out loud, her kind nature was showing in her cooking. I would feel sorry if they tasted too bitter for her. Maybe she can eat a little of these mushrooms if they have the right texture. I'd feel bad if she couldn't eat anything. Let's prepare fried chicken too. I could sense her kindness in her food. Keith had told me that his late grandmother lived there until a few years ago and that she'd had assumed control over the family. Lisa had been bullied by her and given the lowest rank. She spoiled only Kyle, the eldest son, and Keith was left out. Even after her passing, the treatment of Lisa within the family did not change. When Keith became acquainted with my family, he realized for the first time that something was wrong with his family. The root of all evil in his family was David and Kyle, and Lisa was their victim. Even though I knew this, I couldn't easily forgive her for her bad behavior toward me. Still, her cooking was filled with genuine kindness and was amazing, so I wanted to give her a last chance. Keith and I would never come to this house again.
What? What are you saying?
I was talking to Lisa, but David and Kyle jumped in.
Who do you think you are? You don't have the right to decide. That's right. A stupid, emotional woman has no right to speak. Shut up!
When the normally calm Keith yelled like an erupting volcano, Kyle flinched. Using him as a shield, I suggested to Lisa, if you want to see Keith and me, and your future grandchild, please think about what you should do. Please think about what you want to do with these selfish men. For yourself. For myself, she mumbled and looked to heaven.
Don't take this black-hearted woman's word. Her goal is to break us apart.
Kyle yelled at her, but she kept silent with her eyes fixed on the birthday cake. For the first time in decades, it was prepared for her. Keith and I left the house at that point. As we were getting into the car, David followed and cursed us, but we ignored him and drove away. There was nothing more I could do. It was up to Lisa. 3 months later, Lisa left her house and came to mine. She apologized to me on her knees at the doorstep. I rushed to stop her, but she repeatedly apologized with tears running down her cheeks. She was brainwashed by her late mother-in-law that a wife was supposed to serve her family and that women were lower than men. Even after her passing, Lisa had been living under the spell for a long time. When she saw Keith and I happily sharing housework, she looked at us with amazement and jealousy. It was Kyle who took advantage of her feelings and told her to discipline me by bullying. There was a role of a mother-in-law. After being bullied herself, she believed that it was a normal thing for a mother-in-law to do. She was well brought up and was not used to being nasty to people though. Serving what I disliked was the best she could do. However, I praised her cooking and happily gobbled everything. She felt miserable being mean to such a good daughter-in-law, but she still couldn't stop herself. After our last visit, she felt emotionally drained and shut herself up in her room, except for doing the bare minimum of housework. Kyle and David complained about her lazy cooking and apparently had a great time bitching about Keith and me. As she watched her disgraceful family and thought back on my last words to her, the spell gradually melted away. She did not want to waste the rest of her life for those who didn't treat her as a human being. I could feel her suffocating pain. I almost blurted out that she should have lived with us, but Keith gently stopped me. Instead, we found her an apartment a 15 minutes walk from our house. By the way, when she announced that she was leaving, David pleaded and yelled in panic. Kyle, on the other hand, coldly stated,
An old woman who has never worked can't survive on her own. There is no way that she and Sally would get along.
David was dragged in by his arrogant attitude and kicked her out of the house in the end. It was true that probably no company would hire an almost 60-year-old with no experience. What I didn't know was that she had some unearned income from an apartment and a parking lot business that she inherited from her late father. As soon as she lived humbly, she had no worries about her finances. Of course, she had lived for her family all her life. Gambling or squandering money had never been in her mind. It was rather more concerning for Kyle, who had never paid a cent for his living expenses at home, and David, who had retired and had to live on his savings and pensions. They relied on her for both chores and finances, and never imagined what would happen when she was gone. At first, they'd lived a comfortable life by eating out, buying prepared meals, and using housekeeping services, but such a life could not last. 3 months later, David got a call from the bank that his account was overdrawn and finally realized there was no balance left. Moreover, due to the poor diet, Kyle had gained a lot of weight, and David was suffering from health issues due to excessive consumption of salt and alcohol. He used to be proud of his good health, so it was such a shock for him. They must have finally realized that it was old Lisa who kept a peaceful family life. 5 months after Lisa moved out, they grew impatient with her not showing any signs of coming home and ordered her to return. However, once she had awakened from her brainwashing and realized the comfort of living alone, she had no intention of going back to her old life. Instead, Keith visited them with a lawyer, and divorce proceedings were initiated. They resisted all around, but they didn't have the money to hire a lawyer. It took a long time, but Lisa was eventually set free. In need of a new housekeeper, Kyle desperately searched for a wife, but no right-minded woman would come near that filthy house. The two, unable to lower the standard of living, kept aiding their debts and garbage. They eventually went bankrupt, and the house was sold after a while as a vacant lot. They lived in the small apartment while working day jobs. They were still thinking that if Lisa saw their devastation, she would feel responsible and apologize to them. They showed no love or appreciation to her, but only expected to receive her unconditional love. What fools they are! On New Year's Day, 4 years later,
Happy birthday, Nana.
"Thank you." Lisa smiles happily as she receives a crayon sketch drawn by her soon-to-be 3-year-old grandson.
Here, Mom. It's a nice piece of meat. Eat it while it's still hot.
"Oh, how wonderful!" She watches Keith, who is in charge of the grill, with twinkles in her eyes. Now she and I have come to know each other so well that we even go on day trips together. Keith is learning to cook from her on his days off and steadily acquiring her skills. My son has been receiving all of her love and affection. I'm very satisfied to enjoying her delicious meals while seeing her peaceful face. Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, man and woman, it doesn't matter who does the cooking. The heart appreciates and enjoys the food prepared with love. A dining table shared with those hearts at the center of the home is the happiest thing in the world.
My mother-in-law kicks me out of my house after my husband is gone. As a result,
My husband Ken and I built our family home at the same time when we got married to each other. Our family home is the biggest purchase I ever had in my life. We both decided to cherish our family home together. But I already threw away all of your stuff, okay? I never thought that our family home would be taken away like this. My husband and I got married 3 years ago. We built our own family home when we got married and have been steadily paying for the mortgage. That new smell once you get into the newly built house, and the kind face of my sweet husband. The spacious living room with lots of morning sunlight pouring in through the large windows was what Ken and I dreamed to have one day. Since we were going to build our own house, my husband listened to my opinions as much as possible. Among them, I was particular about the built-in kitchen and the size and the directions of the windows. On Sundays, around 2 p.m., this window lets in just the right amount of sunlight into the room. And with that sunlight, my husband and I lay down and relaxed around the room, and even take naps. And once I brew the coffee with these delicious coffee beans, the room is filled with the good aroma of the coffee. This is what I would call my moment of happiness. But to be realistic, it truly costed us a lot to get our blissful moments with our family home. I am just really glad that I have been working properly and consistently. When we were qualified for the mortgage, I patted myself on the back for working hard this whole time. And my husband felt the same, of course. But within a month since our family home was completed, I received a call from my mother-in-law, Pam, who had been living apart from us. You and Ken built a family home, is that right? Well, now that it's completed, I'd like for you to let me live with you both in that house. If I continue to live in this rundown house all by myself, I will get sick. Pam is single, and she's living on her own on welfare. Pam and I were not that close to each other, as I just only went to greet her when I was about to marry Ken. To be honest, it is really difficult for me to have Pam suddenly living with us as a newly wedded couple in our own home.
I know you, Anna, and I can see how my mother living with us would be a huge burden to you. So, I'll tell my mother that we can't live with her and refuse. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Thankfully, my husband is a man who takes my feelings into consideration and really understands me. So then, my husband had refused Pam about her idea on living with us. And 2 years later, Ken and I had our first baby. I guess Pam thought that it was a good opportunity for her, so she suggested the idea to live with us again. Isn't it hard to take care of the baby and do the house chores all by yourself? If I get to live with you all, I will definitely help you taking care with the baby and the house chores. And besides, it's a great opportunity, so please let me live with you all. It's true that taking care of the baby and doing all the house chores requires hard work, and I would actually appreciate her if Pam would help us out. Plus, I plan to go back to work eventually, and so it would be better to have more people taking care of the baby.
Well, what do you think? I think it might be a good idea to have someone help us out at least.
Well, yes. If Pam keeps her word and helps us properly, then... Pam was really delighted when I agreed for her to move in with us on the condition that she would help me with the baby and house chores. Once we began living together, Pam took it very seriously and helped out with the baby and the house chores all on her own. Okay, well, I'll do the laundry and fold the clothes, okay? Thank you. While you're gone for the groceries, I'll look after the baby, okay? Aw, who's a good boy? You are a good boy. Thank you very much. I honestly didn't expect Pam to help me like this. I even felt a little guilty that I underestimated her. She's been really helpful around the house, and I should be really grateful of her. Or so I thought. Pam taking it seriously and helping around the house and taking care of the baby only lasted for about a week. After that, she would just slack off and relax around once my husband was gone, or doesn't even take care of my son even though I asked her to look after him. This happened a lot, and I'm starting to not trust Pam more and more. Pam hasn't been taking the house chores seriously lately, and I can't even ask her to take care of our son, let alone do the housework, if she's being like that.
I see. All right. I'll talk to my mother about it.
My husband tried to warn her several times, but she wouldn't really listen to him. You know, I'm doing my best too. Anna is just being too strict here.
But you need to help us out properly. That's why we're living together in the first place.
What? Are you trying to kick me out? Ugh, please, don't be so cold about it. Ugh, please, don't kick me out because of this. Whenever Ken warned her, she either blamed me or cried to make him feel sorry for her. And so like that, Pam persistently continued to stay at our house. Pam, who no longer helps me raise and take care of our son properly, has also become annoyed with him gradually. Oh, he's crying again. He's so loud. There. Hurry up and make him stop crying already. Not only does she not take care of our son, but I feel nothing but anxiety when she is around him. Honey, I'm really afraid to let our son get close to Pam like this. I really want her to leave our home as soon as possible.
All right, I understand. I'll get my mother a new place to live on her own so that I can convince her.
My husband prepared to rent an apartment so that Pam would easily leave our home. Before I knew it, our living room was full of Pam's stuff. I have to hold our son all the time because it could be really dangerous if he bumps into Pam's stuff or puts them into his mouth. We have already warned Pam enough, but she still won't change her attitude. We will definitely persuade her to leave our home. When I was thinking that, oh no, he's gone. Why? Our son was missing from his room, where he was supposed to be sleeping in. I looked around in a panic and found Pam taking our son outside. What are you doing? How dare you take our son out without our permission? I just wanted to show off my grandchild a little. Do you have any clue how worried I was? If I took him out like this, people will try to maybe share us with something, you know? So you shouldn't worry that much. And you're being too loud shouting like that to me. I just couldn't believe that Pam would take our son out without saying anything to me. And it didn't even look like Pam was guilty about it at all, but instead, she got angry. Hearing the story, my husband got also furious. So, at once, we had Pam leave our home without question. 1 year has passed since then. Our son had turned 1 year old and gradually began to walk little by little. Then suddenly, my husband was involved in an accident on his way home from work one day and unfortunately passed away. I was at a loss of words, having lost my husband so suddenly. Why did he have to leave us? What am I going to do with my son who's still small? Even at Ken's funeral, I was so sad that I could not stop crying. Then Pam began to talk to me. Hello, long time no see, Anna. I never thought that we'd see each other again like this. Oh, Pam. For Pam, her own son had passed away. The grief of a mother who has lost her son must be very deep. I should not be the only one crying for Ken like this. I must be strong for him. I answered Pam, trying desperately to hold back my tears. It was just really so sudden. Indeed. So, since the family house belongs to my son, I'm supposed to get it, right? Huh? Then, could you leave the furnitures too? Excuse me? What is she even saying? I thought we were both grieving the loss of our beloved, but then she started talking about the house, the furnitures, and other things that didn't make sense to me at all. I was just so confused by Pam's words. And even if she said that she would take the house, it costed about $500,000 to build it. And there's still the mortgage, which needs to be paid. Even if that's true, what about the mortgage? Oh, well, you are going to pay that, right? Excuse me? What in the world is she saying? I can't believe that Pam would even bring it up at Ken's funeral in the first place. I'm not sure that I want to talk about that right now. We're at Ken's funeral after all. But it's very important that we talk about this anyways. But now's not a good time to... Anyways, I will get the house, right? How could she be so obnoxious? Pam seems to want to get a clear confirmation from me that I would give her our house, but I was being so sad about Ken, and I was getting so fed up of Pam being like this. That's it. Enough, Pam. We are at Ken's funeral. If you continue to be like this at the funeral, please leave immediately. When I said that strongly, Pam became silent and left my side. What was she really thinking when her own son had passed away? Sometime later, after all the funeral, cremation, and such were over, I was able to calm down for the time being. I can't stay sad forever. I have to do my best and work hard to make a good living for my son. So, I left my child at daycare center and returned to work. My days were very hectic with work, house chores, and taking care of my son. Then one day, when I returned home after picking up my son, I saw all of my belongings being left on the garbage dumpster near the entrance. What is the meaning of this? My clothes, desk, and work things were all piled up in one big dump. But upon looking closely, it seems that my expensive clothes, my expensive accessories, the TV, the huge fridge, and so on, weren't taken out as a garbage.
Oh, what a great timing. You live here, right? Well, the cost of this move is...
Huh? And then the mover who was there talked to me and charged me a fee for something I couldn't really understand what was going on. Once I listened to what the mover was saying, I found out that Pam was the one who had hired him. What is she trying to do? Was Pam in my house right now? I tried to go inside, but for some reason, the front door would not open. Don't tell me that Pam has even changed the locks already. Maybe Pam had somehow gotten my house key when I was just being too busy with Ken's funeral. I immediately called Pam. What is the meaning of this, Pam? How dare you come into my house without any permission and throw out my stuff without even asking me? What's so wrong of me for taking my own son's stuff? You're not a family anymore, so get out. I beg your pardon? Ken is not here anymore, so you're not a family anymore. Get out before I report you for trespassing. Saying that, Pam just hung up the phone on me. How selfish and messed up she is. I really have to get my house back somehow. But my son began to cry and I couldn't stay out there forever, so I thought that I better go to a hotel or my parents' house. I asked the movers to move my belongings to a storage for the time being, and I left for now. And a week later, I received a phone call from Pam, who sounded really upset. "Hey, the police came over here and it looks like they're trying to make me leave the house. Please do something about it." How could she even say such a thing after she was the one who kicked me out? Pam was being too selfish. "Even if you say so, I am not your family anymore, since I've gone through post-mortem divorce settlement." What? Post-mortem divorce? Yes, it's a procedure to terminate the relationship between myself and the relatives of my deceased husband. What? Since I am still Ken's spouse, I will inherit the house. But I have cut ties with you, and I have no obligation to have you living in my house, nor do I owe you any support. Huh? You know that I literally have nothing, and yet you're kicking me out? Yes, I did so as you wish, since I'm not your family anymore. But I took care of the baby. You're so ungrateful, and you're just really so cold and strict. Pam didn't sound like she realized what she was doing was wrong, but instead, she got angry. It's not like she didn't take care of my son much, so I really don't owe her anything. Well, this is the reaction I expected from her, though. If you say that, then I have no choice. You can live there if you want. Oh, really? You said that I can, right? I can really continue to live here, right? Yes, but instead, please pay the mortgage for the house as a one installment. Excuse me? You don't really have to pay the mortgage, which has already been paid for up until now. You only need to pay for the remaining mortgage. You should know, though, that it's a lot. What the? How could I possibly pay the mortgage on a house that has only been built for 3 years and for one installment? Well, if you can't then, the house there is mine, and you, who is not my family, should be reported for breaking and entering my house. I told her so and hung up the phone. By the way, since we had insurance, I didn't have to pay for the mortgage anymore when my husband passed away, but I don't really have to tell Pam about that. A few days later, I finally got back into our house. But it was a mess. The furnitures were damaged, and my clothes were all messy too. I took photos of each and every one of them and documented them, along with how much it all costed when I was kicked out of the house from Pam a few days ago. But even if I file a claim, there's a good chance that it'll be overlooked because Pam definitely would not be able to pay back all the money. But if Pam does anything to me in the future, I will be able to use this to make her shut up. She then contacted me asking me to pay her $1,000 fine for trespassing, but of course, I ignored it. Can't she see that I am the victim here, and that there is no way in hell that I would pay that for her? And 3 years later. In the end, Pam was not able to pay the fines, and was found guilty for being malicious, and she was imprisoned for 3 years. Pam, who had completed the 3 years, contacted me. Please, I'm really in trouble. I really don't have a place to go home, and I don't know what to do. She seemed to be using a payphone, probably getting money from random people to make calls, since it would hang up a few times while she was talking. In the end, it seems that what she is trying to say is that she has no home to go back to. The apartment my husband rented for her previously to make her leave has, of course, been terminated already. And the family home Ken and I built has already been sold, as I was afraid of Pam coming back. Well, this is what you deserve, Pam, and I have nothing to do with you anymore. So please stop bothering me and just live your life on your own, please. What? I told her so and hung up the phone on her. Then I set up the phone so that Pam would not contact me. So that was it for Pam, who has no will to live her own life on her own. I will make sure to raise my own son so well that he could live strongly all on his own. Thinking this, I laid my hands on Ken's photo with my son. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.